Today is a day of beginnings. The construction of the Bruins' new home, the Fleet Center, began in the spring of 1993. Over 8,000 tons of steel, and 2.5 years later, the building opens its doors to a new era in Bruins history, the Casper era. As the 34-year-old Montreal native begins his NHL coaching career, his team begins with a new cast and new hope for glory. But there are new questions as well. Is there enough depth on defense? And will Blaine Locker continue his strong presence in the net? The Bruins begin to answer the questions today against an old friend in a new building as they chase their first Stanley Cup in 23 years, just 9 inches away from history. You're looking at the brand new state-of-the-art Fleet Center, 2.5 years in the making. Now the home of the Boston Bruins, as today they play host to the New York Islanders. Hi, everybody. Derek, one word to describe this Fleet Center. Awesome.
It is. It's a wonderful building. It's going to be a lot of exciting, enjoyable games here. I think the concessions are accessible. The skybox are absolutely glorious. And the seating, it's wonderful. So it's top of the line. Top of the line.
I knew you'd bring up the concessions you like to eat.
I do like my concessions, and it's good food, exciting food, different food. I went down to the ticket office and to see Matt Brennan down there before the game, and there's some awesome restaurants. They are truly, truly wonderful restaurants.
Okay, awesome is the word for the
operative word today.
And now let's look at some stats here for the Boston Bruins.
Well, they've got the offense. We've looked at that.
Of power plays and what the contributions those two could make on a power play.
And of course the Islanders with several new faces as well. Let's show you 3 of them anyhow who figure to make a pretty significant impact.
Well, of course, we've talked about Wendell Clark and some of the things that he's capable of doing, and that's all they're going to ask of him. And Bertuzzi brings some size, some spirit. He brings some real toughness on the right wing side, and McCabe does the same as a defenseman. Now the two of them, McCabe and Bertuzzi, are young, but they're very attuned. I think very well coached when they were young players, and it seems to come out in the exhibition games, and so they're 2 bright futures for the Islanders as well.
I don't think we'll have all kinds of pomp and circumstance this afternoon here at the Fleet Center because they handled most of that during the closing ceremonies at the Boston Garden, but it should be fun here anyway today.
Yeah, I think it's a spirit. And the fact that it's an afternoon game, and I've always enjoyed afternoon games on the weekends because it brings a lot of young people to the hockey games, and that's something that everybody likes to see, because when you think about it, that's really the future of hockey is these young people that come and enjoy the game.
Well, you better believe it. The Bruins have one on defense, an 18-year-old named Kyle McLaren. You've heard about some of the Islanders' young faces. We'll meet them in the days ahead, and as far as the Islanders and Bruins are concerned, that's coming up straight ahead right here on Sports Channel. Center in Boston, Massachusetts, as we get set for the pregame introductions and all of the pomp and circumstance surrounding the opening of a new building. And change is certainly the operative phrase for both teams. The roar you hear accompanied a photo of Bobby Orr up on the Fleet Center scoreboard. And not only is Mike Milbury new behind the Islanders bench, but so is his adversary this afternoon, Steve Casper, a former Bruin, behind the Bruins bench. Now this is Casper with the puck, and he's looking for Milbury, who's just out of the penalty box in a game from some years back. Now watch his left skate. I mean, looks like one of those clamp skates that we used to play around with on cement. I thought he was going to need the skate key there, but he stayed on his feet and came up with a goal.
Well, there's so many memories, and I suppose Mike Milbury, just talking about that, it's time to close the door, close the album, and start a new one. But yeah.
The ice symbolic in that he is the first Bruin player now to officially skate onto the ice, save for the pregame warm-ups here at the Fleet Center. We'll pick up all the introductions.
Well, they just introduced Bork. Bobby Orr wanted to be the last one to skate in the old garden, which he is allowed to, only fitting that Bork is the first one here.
Here's a former Devil, Alexei Kazatonov.
Number 8, Cam Neely.
Also a fan favorite here in Boston, Cam Neely.
Number 11, Joe Mullen.
And a New York native who played his college hockey up here in
Number
Boston
12,
for BC, Joey
Adam
Mullen.
Oates.
Joey, of course, last year became the highest scoring American-born player in history, hitting the 1,000-point mark. This kid played college hockey up here, too. Sean McEachern, coming over from the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Number 20.
You getting some special twinges here, Eddie? I mean, considering how long you played up here, this mean a little extra to you?
Well, I think that, anytime you come to Boston, it's exciting. Ted Donato, another local boy, but the fans here are amazing because they still remember. I can walk up and down the streets as much as Don Cherry used to hate when I
You get stopped every 10 steps by somebody who remembers you.
There's another local, Kevin Stevens. The fans looking forward to seeing him play as a Boston Bruin. But no, it is, really. And when you think about the number of retired athletes, and I don't just mean hockey players, but from all of the major sports who come back here and retire. It's amazing. I don't think there's another city like it in America or Canada.
And they're very traditionally oriented. All this pomp and circumstance really seems to be something new. I would guess they did not have anything close to this number of bells and whistles when you guys would open up a season in the old building, huh?
Not really, no. I think this is all carried over from the old one into the new one, and the fans know how much these players appreciate them.
This is a new look the Bruins sport in their jerseys, too. In fact, they're one of a handful of teams this year in the National Hockey League who are going to go to a third jersey for special occasions.
Yeah, somewhere around. They've got one that has a grizzly bear, just the bear on the front with nothing else. That would replace the spoke V. But you know, it's funny. They can change this sweater. Locker, of course, who won the hearts of all the fans in the shortened season last year. But you know, you always recognize a Bruins uniform, no matter how they change it. And there he is, the new coach, Steve Casper.
Oh, he looks nervous. You see that deep breath he took? Hey, at least Milbury admitted he was nervous. I would hope Casper would do the same.
Yeah, that's Cap Raider, and he was with Los Angeles for 8 years as an assistant coach, and of course was assistant coach when Steve Casper was a player in Los Angeles.
Tim Waters will be the other assistant coach this year for the Boston Bruins, as they'll line up at the red line and are saluted by a sellout crowd on an historic day in a city that is only now starting to get into the 21st century. You know, it seems as though Fenway Park's days are finally numbered as well. And if Boston Garden went hard, I don't know how easily Fenway Park will go.
Well, you know, and I have to think about Mike Milbury, and of course he has had quite a history here as a player, a coach, and assistant to Harry Sinden as assistant general manager. So I would, you know, all of this, you can say things like, well, it's time to, here they come, the new look Islanders, Captain Flatley. But Milbury has to still think that, you know, you're always in awe when you've been a Boston Bruin. And you're faced, even in a new building, with all of this, this ceremony. You see that old Islander sweater with Mike Bossy's name on it.
That's not really Mike. He's doing, you know, what's he doing, a morning show now in Quebec?
Yeah, and you know what he is? He's a comedian. It's a comedy show. Of all things, Mike Bossy doing comedy on a radio show out of Montreal. You know, I understand he's very good. Of course, that's Mike Bossy. Whatever he would endeavor to do, he would be very good at.
Now, you know, I used to hang around your locker room every once in a while during the prime of the Islanders.
I remember you as a runny-nosed kid with a tape recorder in your hand.
Yeah, still running, you know that?
Yeah.
But I never really thought of Mike Bossy as the Jerry Lewis of that team.
No, quite the opposite.
All right, Mike Milbury, of course, will be behind the bench for the first time as a New York Islander, and he doesn't seem all that anxious to get out there. You know, his players are on the ice. The Bruins coaching staff is assembled behind their bench. Where's Mike Milbury? He's going to answer the bell, won't he?
And you can see Guy Chiron down the runway. It's rather dark, but you can see Guy down there, and I'm sure Mike will come out once the national anthem and so on has been played. He probably feels a little more comfortable not coming out onto the bench at this time.
Well, there's Tommy Soderstrom, who will be starting in goal for the Islanders this afternoon. 1-1 and lost 2 during the preseason, and really with an opportunity to grab the goaltending job and run with it.
Well, that's really what has not happened, Howie, in the exhibition. Like any hockey club, if there's a question about who's the #1 goaltender, they wait to see during the exhibition games if somebody really steps up and takes the job, and that really hasn't been the case here. So getting the start here this afternoon at the Boston Garden could go a long way and maybe trying to solidify himself as that #1 goalie, which of course Locker did when he came in last season. He was signed as a free agent. Can you imagine?
Not drafted.
Out of Lake
right.
Superior State.
Won an NCAA championship there. Right now the teams are lining up with their respective blue lines, and one other holdover from the old building, the Boston Garden, is the anthem singer Rene Rancourt, who might draw a pretty nice round of applause when his name is introduced here momentarily.
Well, he's part of the family, so it's
Secretary Treasurer of the Boston Building Trades Council, who is
business people from the Boston area. But as far as coaches around the National Hockey League are concerned, I mean, you normally get a turnover.
Last year with Winnipeg, when John Paddock decided to become just the general manager.
All right, they're on their feet here at the Fleet Center in Boston as the tuxedoed Rene Rancourt. There's the ovation we promised here for the Boston Garden fixture. They roll out the red carpet, and he's about, for the first time, to sing the national anthem in the brand new building.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming.